Homestuck has always been interesting to talk about. Whether it be Vriskors, rewrites, class specting, English mythology, or character analysis, there's always been about a million facets of Homestuck to talk about. I, for one, like to talk about where it succeeds and where it fails. And to me, there's no greater example of where Homestuck fails than the Retcon. The Retcon was just that, a complete override of the events that took place at the tail end of Act 5 and the entirety of Act 6. And considering people had spent 3 years watching the events of Act 6 take place, I'd imagine being told that only Caliborn and the Ghost's actions really mattered at the end of the day was a huge letdown. Especially since the only reason this ever happened was because the author wanted to bring back his favorite little monster and piss people off. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's try and find out just how we got here, why, and how it could have been better than it ended up being. Let's get the facts straight. After Cascade, both the kids and the trolls traverse the furthest ring and narrative dead space to get to the new session and finally end this nightmare of a game. During the 3-year stretch, a whole lot happens. The Alpha Kids decide that bottling up every grievance they could possibly have with each other is the key to sustaining a friendship. Vriska decides that she wants to be the most relevant person who ever died, and both of the Seers get drunk out of their minds, either being unable to use their powers or being too drunk to use them meaningfully. Actually, let's focus on that first bit first. The entire reason Teresa hates herself enough to date Gamzee and get drunk out of her mind about it is because she's nursing a serious trauma bond in the worst way possible. For those who don't know, a trauma bond is an emotional attachment a victim can manifest for their abuser. And given that Vriska's entire shtick is abuse and love bomb, I can see how Teresa developed one for her. You know, this paints an interesting picture of her previous actions, actually. I can see her apprehension toward Vriska before, during, and after Scrub being more conscious, more aware. Less, I'm so done with this bitch, and more, I can't let her pull me back in. Because Teresa still loves her, and Vriska loves her back, but she can't let herself be abused like that again. She's like a warm bed lined with needles. You want the warm bed, but you don't want to get stabbed again. Anyway, Teresa murders her because it's either that or everyone gets killed and hates herself for doing so. Then Aranea comes in and has a little chat with her about past regrets, and she seems to be under the impression that she caused the events of Flip to happen, that she painted herself into a corner and had to make this decision. It's important to note here that she didn't. If Teresa just chilled out with Tavros' corpse, Vriska would have gone off and led Jack to kill the other trolls regardless. Short of Teresa impossibly flipping heads or Vriska herself just deciding to stop, nothing could have prevented this confrontation. She couldn't have convinced her to stay, she couldn't have subdued her because it's hard to get the drop on somebody directly in front of you, she couldn't have flipped heads because Vriska is a dirty thief. The only other options were for her to stop of her own volition, and good luck with that, or a third party intervening out of actual thin air. Foreshadowing is a narrative device. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Vriska, specifically her ghost self and the repugnant ramifications of her relevancy romp. Her mind-fang aggrandizing bullshit rubs off on her ancestor, Aranea, who decides to mind control the purple plot perpetuator into plundering a progenitor in the shape of a ring which will grant her immortality. She's going to make it so the new session doesn't result in a new universe by any means necessary, which means multiple homicides and 6 planetary genocides. Skip it up and that up. Her whole plan is to heal the doomed timeline she's about to make with her sylph powers, and shunt it into the spot of the Alpha timeline, this time without the many horrors of Lord English. So, her plan is kinda fucking stupid. She claims that under her watchful octet, everything will be peaceful and harmonious, and universes will appear, and beget more universes, and oh no, I appear to be stupid and dying. She's gonna kill the session and somehow new universes will just show up? That isn't how anything works! Really, if she hadn't gone full hero fantasy mode, she could have come up with a way better plan. Maybe help the kids kill the Condesce, let the new session come about, wait a quintillion years for Caliborn's egg to show up, and then break the damn thing before it can come into existence. Then do your weird sylph-of-lighty bullshit. She literally cannot be killed. There's no reason why she can't just sit her ass down and wait. Like, your whole thing is being smart about things, just be smart about them. I also wonder how Homestuck would have gone if Aranea didn't insert herself into the plot and completely ruin everything. I'm willing to bet that things probably would have turned out okay. Maybe John would learn to use his retcon powers to teleport everyone out of harm's way so they could think up a plan, give Teresa a final pep talk, or just have Rose sober up and find out what the best path to success would be, or hell, maybe both of those things could happen at once. Then they follow along with Condi's plan right up until they get the chance to fucking axe her and reap the rewards. Related to that, Teresa could have done exactly what Vriska did in the retcon timeline, and probably with more certainty. She could have formed a good plan with her mind powers. All it would have taken was for her to actually listen to Karkat after Aranea healed her eyes. Maybe have her realize that losing the scars of her abuse is actually a good thing, and have her work out her synesthesia. I never really gelled with the fact that Teresa liked being blinded by Vriska. Yeah, it taught her to sense the world in ways other people couldn't, and let her connect with her dragon mom, but it's still a horrific reminder of just who did this to her. It's like keeping your severed finger in a jar after your ex cut it off because you punched them after they stabbed your 2 friends. Regaining her eyesight could have been a step toward her recovery in a life where she kills her abuse instead of wanting having to make out with them. That's how you solve the Gamzee problem. Have Teresa wise up and kill the bitch. Anyway, after Vriska's gone, we spend 3 actual years following the kids, the trolls, the ghosts, and the cherubs, only to be faced with game over and the knowledge that this was a doomed timeline the entire time, rendering all that time spent caring about them completely and utterly moot. The reason why it became a doomed timeline is because Vriska apparently wasn't supposed to die. I've spoken at length about what a bad move that was, so I won't rehash it here. I'm gonna take a small aside to talk about John's retcon powers for a sec, because I don't know where else to put it, and it leads into some other stuff that I want to talk about. John went to find Caliborn's ultimate weapon, touched it, and got decanonized. He's basically crossed over into the 4th dimension, traversing through the timeline of the comic. This is actually a really interesting concept. Homestead already has weird fucky time travel, but it's bound by the laws of fate, so having time travel above time travel is really, really cool. He sees the effects of game over, and Teresa tells him to go back in time and unfuck up everything, which... damn, this is turning out to be more of a Teresa video than I thought it would. This was a bad move. This was a terrible move. After everyone fucking dies, she tells him to go back and do a bunch of shit that would simultaneously fix everything, but also let her debase herself by cuddling back up to her abusive ex. Okay, look, I get it. I've had to emotionally cut off abusers who I desperately wanted to love again, but I couldn't allow myself to because they were abusive and I knew I would just get hurt again. This is the worst way she could have chose to fix things. It would have been one thing if Vriska had lived for the express purpose of changing so she didn't have to get fucking shanked, but we all know that isn't what happened. She kept going and going and going for 3 entire years and never stopped until she died. And it didn't even turn out to be all that great for Teresa in the end. She got to spend 3 years having fun with her ex, convinced that this was the best possible outcome for her, and then got promptly abandoned by her, left to scour the infinity of paradox space searching and searching and searching. Teresa is a profoundly tragic character. She never moved past her trauma bond and was left either abused and then dead, or abused and then on the wildest goose chase that ever wilded a goose to chase. Because she couldn't handle the idea of moving on no matter what, and literally had somebody rewrite existence so she could be happy in the 8th circle of hell for a little bit longer. Alright, what's next? Oh yeah, we still have to talk about Game Over. Here's the thing, it's really unsatisfying to watch a big climactic event happen on screen with dope-ass musical and visuals, and then have it turn into a we need to go back in time to the first Thanksgiving plot. Ironically, Homestead did the time travel fix-up way better 6,000 pages ago. In the scene immediately after Teresa convinces John to go up and get creamed by his denizen, we see some unspecified amount of time in the future, but 4 months from Dave's perspective, Dave and Rose decide to head back in time and stop John from getting trolled. That was good because we didn't spend 3,000 pages seeing what happened after John died, getting attached to doomed versions of these characters, and then watching them all die in a big grandiose slaughter. That's the biggest thing. It feels like a huge waste of my time. Like I've spent so long caring about all of these people, and then I come to find out none of it even mattered? That isn't satisfying. That's the opposite of satisfying. I don't feel connected to any of these characters anymore because I just saw them all die. The ones who are here now have led completely different lives. Put simply, the only characters you really know after the retcon, outside of their character concepts, are John, Jaspers, Roxy, Vriska 1, and Mina. And also Tavros. You know, I have a theory as to why this happened on a more executive level. Looking back, I think Hussie just wanted to be rid of the comic near the end of its run. The moments leading up to Collide feel a bit rushed. Not rushed in a bad way, just it happened quicker than I expected. It's no secret that he didn't want all that much to do with it near the end, and at the time he was still petty and vindictive enough about it to make some intentionally shitty fanfiction canon, so it made sense why this happened from a doylistic perspective. He got sick of the fandom, sick of the story he created, sick of everything. So he expressed his sickness and fucked off with little influence into Homestuck as a whole after the fact. Think about it, what's the last new thing you've heard about Andrew Hussie? Probably Psycholonials, a work about how he didn't like the fandom and how the ringleader, lol, straight up abandoned her movement because she only ever escalated things. And yeah, that was the right thing to do. In an environment where you cannot help but make everything worse, the right thing for you to do is to get out of that environment. I know I rag on Hussie a lot when I make these videos, but like, I don't think he's like that anymore. Not as mean, not as edgy, he's just living his life away from the internet. And I respect that. So, yeah, the retcon wasn't all that great. It was written out of contempt, a lack of foresight, and general disinterest on part of the author. A lot of people tend to think that it was great because Carnivale was cool, the perspective switching was a fun trick, John's retcon powers were objectively sick. But I want to ask you a question. Did you like the retcon, or did you just like the concepts within the retcon? Did you like the fact that they went back and changed everything, or did you just like the idea of narrative time travel? Did you like Game Over, or did you just like the music and the moment where Aranea and Connie start tweaking and kill 6 planets? Did you like Vriska coming back, or did you just like this one screenshot? Because I don't think you did. This is why the most emotional and cool flashes are right next to the retcon. They give you so much cool shit on top of this poorly written plot point, and hope that makes up for it. Which is why you think it's so good. Your brain has tricked you into thinking. And if that did it for you, that's fine. But for me, it didn't, but I liked what we got once the whole thing was out of the way. Seeing Roxy finally meet up with Rose was great, the conversation between Tavros and Jake was good until... Seeing Dave have a bisexual epiphany was cute and funny, and he had a nice moment with Dirk later on. Collide was objectively cool. I think this is the first time I've seen a million callbacks actually be used to an appropriate degree. Seeing Tavros tell Vriska 2 to eat shit and die and then watching her get sucked into a black hole was fantastic. Hussie continues to be great at paradoxes by way of Lord English's ultimate weapon. There was a lot of great stuff around the retcon that I really, really liked. But I didn't like the retcon. It was just... bad. A bad part of an alright story which not many people outside of theory crafters give all that much attention. And those are my thoughts. If you liked the video, tell me why. And if you didn't, tell me how to improve. Subscribe to see more of my essays, and I'll see you later. Bye bye!